The Shire is quiet. The lanterns are glowing. Welcome back to the Hobbit's Hideout, where stories grow like leaves on the party tree. Hello, guys. Today we're wandering deeper than usual into the heart of ancient woods, where time moves differently and wisdom grows as tall as the sky. Tonight, you'll discover what happens when the very forest itself awakens around you, when ancient guardians stir from their tree dreams, and when you learn that being lost can sometimes mean being exactly where you need to be. Before we wander the forest together, let's pause, take a long, deep breath, and let the weight of your day melt away like morning mist on the party tree. You've earned this quiet moment, just for you. Imagine the soft grass beneath your feet, the smell of fresh earth after rain, the gentle creak of old wood settling into evening's embrace. If any part of this tale makes you smile or brings you a sense of home, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Now, let me paint the scene for you. The evening air carries the scent of distant pipe smoke from Bag End, and somewhere a cricket begins its gentle song. The last rays of golden sunlight filter through the round windows of Hobbiton, casting long shadows that stretch like lazy cats across the well-worn paths. Children's laughter echoes from the Green Dragon, where the grown-ups are settling in for their evening pints and the telling of comfortable, familiar tales. But tonight, dear traveler, your feet will carry you far from these familiar comforts, into a realm where every footstep echoes with the memory of ages past, where every breath carries the scent of stories older than kingdoms. Picture yourself walking along what began as a familiar path, one you've taken many times before in daylight hours. The cobblestones are smooth beneath your feet, worn by countless journeys, and lined with the cheerful yellow and red flowers that hobbits love to plant beside their gates. Your walking stick, carved from good ash wood and polished smooth by many miles, taps rhythmically against the stones, keeping time with your unhurried pace. There's no need for haste tonight. The world can wait while you wander. As you walk, you notice how the domesticated landscape of the Shire begins to soften and change around the edges. The neat hedgerows grow a little wilder, a little taller. The carefully tended gardens give way to patches of land that seem to remember older purposes, where wildflowers grow in patterns that speak of seeds scattered by wind and bird rather than by careful hobbit hands. The very air begins to smell different, less of baking bread and pipe tobacco, more of moss and deep earth and the green scent of things growing wild and free. A path itself begins to change beneath your feet. The cobblestones become less frequent, then disappear entirely, replaced by packed earth that grows softer with each step. Occasionally, your stick encounters the gnarled root of some ancient tree that has grown across the path, and you step carefully over these natural obstacles, grateful for their solid presence in the gathering dusk. The familiar countryside of rolling green hills begins to give way to something older, something that seems to breathe with its own ancient rhythm, inhaling the day's warmth and exhaling the cool promise of night. You pause for a moment beside a small stream that bubbles cheerfully over rounded stones, its water so clear you can see the pebbled bottom even in the fading light. As you lean down to cup the cool water in your hands and drink, you realize that the cheerful bird song of the meadows has gradually faded behind you. In its place comes a different kind of music, the slow measured creaking of wood that sounds almost like voices, the whisper of leaves that rustle without wind, the distant call of creatures you can't quite identify, but that seem to be welcoming you deeper into their domain. Rising from the stream, you notice that the sky has grown darker, not just with the natural coming of night, but because towering branches have begun to arch overhead, weaving together like the fingers of giants clasped in prayer. These are not the friendly oaks and maples that dot the Shire's borders, trees that seem designed for climbing and sitting beneath during lazy summer afternoons. These trees are older, taller, their trunks so wide that you suspect you could walk around them for several minutes without completing a full circle. Their bark is deeply grooved, carved by centuries of weather into patterns that look almost like writing, a script of ridges and furrows that speaks of millennia of patient growth and quiet observation. The realization comes to you gradually, like dawn breaking over distant hills. You've wandered into Fangorn Forest. The stories you've aired, whispered in taverns on winter nights, come back to you now. Tales of trees that walk beneath, the stars of forests that think and dream and remember. Of wood shepherds tall as towers, who tend their flocks of oak and ash with the patience of stone and the wisdom of deep roots. But standing here now, breathing in the green-scented air that tastes of rain and earth, and the slow exhale of countless leaves, those stories don't feel frightening. They feel alive, ancient, peaceful in a way that makes your hurried human worries seem as small and temporary as dewdrops on spider silk. You continue walking, though the path is no longer clear in any conventional sense. Instead, your feet seem to find their own way between the massive tree, trunks following spaces that open before you, as if the forest itself is guiding your steps, gently steering you along routes that have been walked by few human feet. The ground beneath you is springy, with centuries of fallen leaves, creating a carpet so thick and soft that your footsteps make barely a whisper of sound. Each step releases the sweet, complex perfume of decay and renewal, the signature scent of a forest floor where nothing is ever truly lost, where every fallen leaf becomes the foundation for new growth. Occasionally, your fingers brush against the bark of passing trees, and each touch reveals a different texture and temperature. Some bark is rough as dragon scales, deeply ridged and weathered by countless seasons. Others are smooth as river stones, their surfaces polished by decades of wind and rain. Some feel warm to the touch despite the cooling air, as if heated by some inner fire of life. Others carry the cool, mineral touch of deep earth and hidden springs. Each tree seems to have its own personality, its own way of existing in the world, and touching them feels like greeting old friends you've never met, but somehow always known. As you walk deeper into this cathedral of living pillars, you begin to notice something that makes you pause and tilt your head, listening more carefully with ears that are learning to hear beyond the surface of things. The sounds around you aren't quite what you expected from any ordinary forest. Yes, there's the gentle sigh of wind through leaves, but beneath that, is it your imagination? Or do you hear something that sounds almost like breathing? Deep, slow breaths, as if the entire forest is sleeping and dreaming, its vast chest rising and falling with each passing minute, each exhalation carrying the scent of deep earth and ancient wisdom. You stop beside a particularly ancient oak, its trunk so vast that even stretching your arms as wide as they'll go, you couldn't span even a small portion of its circumference. The tree seems to tower up into the darkness above, like a living mountain, its canopy lost in shadows that could hide entire villages. As you stand there, catching your own breath and marveling at the sheer presence of this ancient giant, you place your palm flat against its bark. The wood is warm, not with the warmth of stored sunlight, for precious little sun penetrates this deep canopy during the day, but with a different kind of warmth. A living warmth that seems to pulse gently against your hand like a heartbeat, but slower, deeper, more patient than any heartbeat you've ever felt. The pulse is so faint at first that you wonder if you might be imagining it. But as you stand there, your hand pressed against the ancient bark, your own breathing naturally slowing to match some rhythm you can't quite identify, the sensation becomes clearer. It's definitely a pulse, but one that beats perhaps once every few seconds, as if this great tree as heart moves to a different measure of time than your own quick human rhythm. The beat is steady, reassuring, like the sound of a great drum being played in a distant hall. Its resonance felt more than heard. And then, as you stand there with your hand pressed to the ancient bark, feeling this slow pulse of life thrumming beneath your palm, you feel it. The tree moves. Not quickly, not with any sudden motion that might startle or alarm you. Instead, the movement is so gradual, so gentle, that at first you wonder if you've imagined it. or if perhaps the wind is picked up. But there is no wind. The air hangs perfectly still around you, heavy with the scent of moss and deep loam. No, this is definitely movement, deliberate and purposeful. The massive trunk shifts slightly, like someone settling more comfortably in their favorite chair after a long day. The movement is accompanied by a sound like the slow creaking of a ship, S-mast in a gentle swell, deep and resonant, vibrating through the wood and into your bones, speaking of strength accumulated over centuries and patience learned through the slow passage of countless seasons. You step back, not in fear but in wonder, your eyes wide as you try to take in what you're witnessing. And as you do, you begin to notice movement throughout the forest around you. It's subtle at first, a slight swaying that doesn't match the rhythm of any wind. Branches that seem to stretch and flex like arms awakening from deep sleep. The more you watch, the more you see. Trees leaning slightly toward each other, as if sharing whispered secrets. Roots that shift and settle with barely audible sighs of contentment, canopies that rustle and whisper without any breeze to stir them. The forest is waking up. But rather than feeling alarmed or afraid, you find yourself filled with a deep sense of privilege and wonder. How many beings have been present for such an awakening? How many have stood witness to the slow stirring of these ancient guardians as they rouse themselves from whatever deep dreams occupy trees that have been growing and thinking for longer than human memory can reach? You remain very still, hardly daring to breathe too loudly, as all around you the forest begins its gentle morning stretch, despite the fact that evening is falling in the world beyond these ancient borders. The movements become more pronounced, more obviously intentional. A great pine to your left lifts what you had taken for ordinary branches, revealing them to be more like arms, stretching toward the starlit sky with unmistakable purpose. An elm nearby turns what might have been its canopy, and you catch a glimpse of features in its bark, not carved there by any hand, but grown naturally over decades and centuries into something that could only be called a face. Eyes like pools of forest shadow, a mouth that seems carved from living wood, features that shift and flow like water, but somehow maintain their essential character. A voice reaches your ears then, though calling it a voice hardly does justice to the phenomenon. It's more like the sound of wind through a deep cave, or water flowing over ancient stones, or the distant rumble of mountains settling into their eternal positions. The words come slowly, each one carefully considered and spaced apart like the tolling of a great bell in some distant tower. The very sound seems to carry the weight of years, the patience of stones, the deep wisdom of things that have learned to think in seasons rather than moments. What have we here? A little one, walking alone in the deep woods where few of the quick folk ever wander. You turn toward the sound, and your breath catches in your throat like a bird surprised in flight. What you had taken for a particularly gnarled and ancient tree trunk is reshaping itself before your eyes, revealing its true nature with the unhurried dignity of something that has no need to hide what it is. This is no ordinary tree, no matter how extraordinary ordinary trees might be. This is an Ent, one of the ancient tree shepherds of legend, one of the guardians who tend the deep forests with the patience of roots and the wisdom of rings that mark the passage of years in living wood. He's taller than you had imagined from the stories, taller than the tallest pine you've ever seen, his head disappearing up into the canopy above, where it mingles with branches and stars. His skin is bark, but bark that moves and flows like water while maintaining its essential tree nature. Sometimes it looks like the rough, deeply grooved hide of an ancient oak, dark and strong, and speaking of centuries, weathered with dignity. Sometimes it shifts to resemble the smooth, pale surface of a birch, marked with the distinctive horizontal lines that speak of flexibility and grace. Sometimes it shows the distinctive diamond patterns of ash or the deep furrows of elm, as if he carries within himself the essence of many different kinds of trees, unified into one magnificent being. His arms are like great branches, powerful and gnarled, ending in hands that could easily encircle your entire body with fingers to spare. Yet there's nothing threatening in his posture or presence. If anything, he seems concerned, curious, the way a grandfather might look upon discovering a young grandchild who has wandered too far from home and might be in need of guidance back to familiar territory. His eyes, deep and dark as forest pools where ancient secrets sleep, regard you with patient interest, as if he has all the time in the world to understand who you are and what has brought you to his realm. Whom, the ant continues, his voice carrying undertones that seem to resonate in your chest, in your bones, in places deeper than hearing usually reaches. Lost, are you? The paths of Fangorn are not made for the quick feet of the young folk. They twist and turn like the years themselves, like the slow thoughts of deep roots, leading where they will, rather than where one might expect or wish to go. But perhaps, he pauses, tilting his great head to study you more carefully, perhaps you are not so much lost as found. The forest does not often bring visitors by accident, especially not in the deep hours when we old ones begin to wake and walk. You find your voice, though it sounds small and quick compared to his tree-deep rumble, like the chirping of a bird compared to the slow roar of waterfall. You explain how you are walking, how the familiar paths of the Shire seem to lead you here without your quite realizing where you are going, how the evening drew you forward step by step until you found yourself in this ancient realm. You mentioned that you didn't mean to trespass, that you hope you haven't disturbed anything important by wandering where you perhaps shouldn't be. But even as you speak these words of apology, you realize that trespass doesn't feel like the right word for what's happening here. The forest doesn't feel like it's excluding you or warning you away. Quite the opposite. It feels like it's been waiting for you, like your arrival was expected even if you didn't expect it yourself. The very air seems to be welcoming you, drawing you deeper into mysteries you never knew you were seeking. The ant listens with the patience of stone and the attention of still water, never interrupting, never showing any sign of impatience with your quick human speech. His deep eyes blink slowly, like an owl considering the mysteries of the night, and occasionally he nods a movement so gradual that it takes several seconds to complete, but somehow conveys perfect understanding. When you finish speaking, he's quiet for a long moment considering your words, with the thoroughness that comes from having all the time in the world, and understanding that the best thoughts are those that are allowed to ripen like fruit on the tree of contemplation. He says finally, and you think you detect a note of gentle amusement in his voice, like the sound of wind chuckling through leaves on a perfect spring day. Not lost, little one, found. The forest does not bring visitors by accident, especially not visitors who come with proper respect, who touch the trees with gentle hands and listen with ears that are learning to hear beyond the surface of things. If you are here, it is because you needed to be here, and because we needed you to be here as well. The timing of trees is not the timing of the quick folk, but it is never wrong. We do not think in moments or hours, but in seasons and years, and sometimes in decades. And this moment your arrival in our realm, this has been growing toward completion for longer than you might imagine. Around you, other movements catch your eye, now that you relearning to see the forest as it truly is, rather than as you expected it to be. More ants are stirring, their tree forms shifting and revealing themselves like actors stepping forward on a stage. Some are tall and willowy, swaying with the natural grace of birches that have learned to bend without breaking through countless storms. Others are broad and sturdy, with the solid, reassuring presence of oaks that have stood firm through centuries of change and challenge. Each one is unique, shaped by their own long years of growth and thought and experience, yet all share that same quality of patient, ancient wisdom that seems to flow like sap through their living wood. A younger ant, though younger, in the deep time of tree folk, still means several centuries of growth and contemplation, approaches with movements like a pine swaying in a gentle breeze. Her bark has the reddish tinge of cedar, and her voice carries the sweet, resinous scent of evergreen forests when she speaks. "Welcome, quick one," she says, her words flowing like honey from the comb. "It has been long since one of your kind walked among us with such proper attention, such willingness to see rather than simply look. Most who enter our realm are in such haste that they crash through our groves like storms, seeing only obstacles where we would show them wonders, hearing only silence where we offer the deep music of growing things. But you," adds another ent, her voice like the whisper of wind through aspen leaves, silver bright and dancing, "you have slowed your steps to something approaching tree pace. You have quieted your quick thoughts enough to begin hearing the deeper rhythms. You have learned the first lesson of the forest, that the most important things cannot be rushed, cannot be forced, but must be allowed to unfold in their own time, like leaves unrolling in spring. Come," says your first ent, and something in his manner suggests that he might be the eldest among them, or perhaps simply the one who has taken on the role of speaking for the group. "My name is Leaf Whisper, though it takes considerable time to say it properly in the old tongue, time that we have, but which your quick folk rarely seem to possess. The night is young by our reckoning indeed, barely begun, and there is much to see if you have the patience to see it properly. But first, you must learn to move as the forest moves, slowly, deliberately, with respect for each step and awareness of how each footfall affects the living earth beneath your feet." He begins to walk, and walking doesn't begin to describe the grace and intention of his movement. It's more like a slow dance, each step considered and deliberate, his great feet settling gently on the forest floor, as if he is greeting old friends with each footfall. He doesn't simply place his feet down, he settles them, allowing his weight to distribute gradually, giving the earth time to adjust and respond. His pace is so measured, so different from anything you've ever experienced, that at first you worry you'll be impatient, that your human nature will rebel against moving so slowly through the world. But something magical happens as you consciously match your steps to his. The forest around you seems to slow down as well. Or perhaps you've simply learned to perceive it at its natural speed, rather than rushing past it in the blur of human haste. Suddenly, you can see things you would have missed entirely at your usual pace. The way dewdrops form perfect spheres on spider webs, each one containing a miniature reflection of the world. The intricate patterns of bark on each tree, no two alike, each telling its own story of seasons weathered and years survived. The subtle movements of small creatures who emerge from their hideaways when they sense the patient, non-threatening presence of beings who move with forest time rather than human time. As you walk together through the ancient groves, your footsteps gradually synchronizing with Leaf Whisper's measured pace, he begins to share the secrets of his realm. He points out trees that are older than kingdoms, their stories written in the patterns of their bark and the spread of their branches. Each tree, he explains, is not just an individual, but part of a vast community, connected by root systems and fungal networks that allow them to share nutrients, warnings, even what might be called thoughts and feelings. This one, he says, stopping beside a massive elm whose trunk disappears up into the darkness above, so tall that its canopy mingles with the stars themselves, has been contemplating the same thought for 300 years. It is a deep thought a tree thought about the nature of rain and how each drop carries within it the memory of the sea from which it came, the clouds through which it traveled, and the earth to which it returns. Such thoughts cannot be rushed. They must be allowed to develop like rings in the heartwood, slowly and with proper attention to every nuance and implication. You rest your hand against the elm's bark, and indeed, you feel something a deep, oceanic patience, as if the tree is slowly contemplating something vast and wet and eternal. The sensation is so profound that you almost feel you could slip into that 300-year thought yourself becoming part of the tree, as meditation on rain and memory, and the endless cycle of water from sea to cloud to earth and back again. For a moment, your own thoughts slow to something approaching tree pace, and you understand how 300 years might not be too long, to properly consider such a vast and important question. And this beauty here, Leaf Whisper continues, guiding you to a grove of silver birches that seem to glow with their own inner light, their pale bark luminous in the starlight like captured moonbeams. These young ones, only 60 or 70 years old, mere saplings by our reckoning, they dream together of spring mornings. Watch how they sway together, sharing the same dream rhythm, their movements coordinated in ways that speak of deep connection and shared experience. You watch, and gradually you begin to see it, the subtle coordination in their movement, as if they're all dancing to the same slow, sweet music that only they can hear. Their leaves rustle in patterns that seem too organized, too purposeful to be random, creating harmonies and countermelodies that speak of shared joy, shared memories of spring rain and the first warm days after winter. Esgrip has finally loosened its hold on the world. The sound they make together is like a choir of whispers, each voice distinct but blending into something larger and more beautiful than any single voice could achieve alone. As you continue your slow journey through Fangorn, more Ents join your procession. They emerge from groves and clearings like actors stepping onto a stage, some so tall you can barely see their faces in the canopy above, others more modest in height, but no less ancient in bearing and wisdom. Each one greets you with gentle curiosity, their voices adding to a growing symphony of deep, woody tones that seems to make the very air vibrate with welcome and warmth. It has been long since one of the quick folk walked among us with proper patience, explains an Ent whose bark resembles that of a great pine, dark and deeply, furrowed, resinous and fragrant with the scent of mountain forests. Most who enter our borders and few do, for the paths do not reveal themselves to those who are not ready. Most are in such haste that they see only obstacles, where we would show them wonders. They rush past trees that have been growing since before their great-grandfathers were born, never pausing to listen to the stories these ancient ones could tell. But you, adds another, her voice like the whisper of wind through aspen leaves, bright and dancing with an almost musical quality. You have learned the secret of tree time. You have slowed your heart to match our heartbeat, quieted your quick thoughts enough to hear the deeper music that plays always in the background of the living world. And so the forest opens its true face to you, shows you wonders that are always there, but rarely seen by eyes that are too busy looking ahead to see what stands before them. The procession continues, and with each step, you find yourself settling more deeply into the rhythm of the forest. Your breathing slows and deepens, naturally matching the great, patient breaths of the trees around you. Your thoughts, which earlier in the day had raced from worry to plan, to memory, to anticipation, like sparrows flitting from branch to branch, now begin to settle into a quieter pattern like sediment, slowly drifting to the bottom of a clear, still pool. The urgent concerns that had seemed so important just hours ago begin to feel distant, less pressing, as if seen from a great height where their true proportions become clear. The Ents speak as you walk, their voices weaving together into a tapestry of sound and meaning that tells the story of the forest itself. They speak of seasons beyond counting, of the slow dance of growth and decay and renewal that governs all living things. They tell of storms weathered and droughts endured, of the patient work of turning earth and water and sunlight into the miracle of living wood. They speak of the deep networks that connect all growing things, the underground conversations between root systems, the chemical messages that trees send to warn each other of dangers or to share resources in times of need. The quick folk, explains an ancient oak Ent, whose bark is so deeply grooved, it looks like stone carved by wind and water. The quick folk think that trees are solitary beings, each standing, alone in its own small patch of earth. But this is only because they see with quick eyes that cannot perceive the deeper connections. In truth, a forest is more like a single great organism, each tree connected to every other through roots and fungus and the shared air that carries chemical messages faster than any rider could carry word from village to village. When one tree is attacked by insects, adds a graceful element, her movements like slow water flowing over rocks. Every other tree in the forest knows within hours. They begin producing compounds to make their own leaves less palatable, sharing resources with the wounded one, even sending healing substances through the root networks. What appears to quick eyes as individual trees, standing separate, is, to those who see with forest sight, a community more tightly knit than any village, more supportive than any family. Leaf Whisper leads you to a clearing where the canopy opens enough to let starlight filter down in silver streams, creating pools of gentle radiance on the forest floor. In the center of this space stands a pool of water so still and clear that it perfectly reflects the stars above, creating the illusion that you're standing on the edge of the night sky itself. The water is so perfectly mirror-like that it's difficult to tell where the real stars end and their reflections begin, as if heaven and earth have merged into one seamless whole. Around the pool's edge, ancient stones are arranged in patterns that speak of purpose and reverence, though their meaning is older than memory, older perhaps than the kingdoms of men. Some stones are tall and pointed like fingers reaching toward the sky. Others are broad and flat, like tables where ancient ceremonies might once have been performed. Moss covers many of them, soft as velvet, and small flowers grow in the crevices, tiny white blooms that seem to glow with their own inner light, as if they've captured starshine and learned to hold it in their petals. This is the heart pool, Leaf Whisper explains, his voice even softer now, filled with reverence and something that might be called love. Here, the deepest roots of the forest drink, and here, the oldest thoughts are shared between tree and tree. The water has been still for 1,000 years, disturbed only by the gentlest rain and the most careful sips of those who tend this grove. It remembers every drop that has ever joined it, every creature that has ever drunk from its edges, every reflection that has ever graced its surface. You kneel beside the pool, and the water is so clear you can see straight to the bottom, where smooth stones lie like sleeping giants, their surfaces polished by centuries of gentle current. Fish move through the depths like living stars, their scales catching what little light penetrates the water and sending it dancing in patterns too beautiful and complex for any human art to capture. The reflection of stars mingles with the reflection of your own face, and for a moment, you feel as if you're looking both up and down simultaneously, connected to both earth and sky in a way that makes the boundaries between them seem arbitrary and temporary. "Drink," suggests the aspen-voiced Ent, her words like leaves rustling in the gentlest breeze. The water remembers every rain that has ever fallen, every snow that has ever melted into its embrace, every tear of joy or sorrow that has ever fallen in this forest. It will share its memories with you, if you're ready to receive them. But drink slowly, with proper attention. This is not water for quenching ordinary thirst, but for nourishing parts of yourself that you may not even know exist. You cup the water in your hands, and it's so cool and pure that it seems to carry its own light, glowing faintly in your palms like captured moonbeams. As you drink, flavors and sensations flow through you that are unlike anything you've ever experienced. You taste spring rain on new leaves, sweet and clean and full of promise. You taste the mineral patience of deep earth, the ancient wisdom of stones that have watched civilizations rise and fall. You taste the sweetness of maple sap, the tartness of wild berries, the complex richness of soil where countless generations of leaves have composted into the foundation for new growth. Each small sip seems to carry stories, memories of seasons beyond counting, of creatures great and small who have come to this pool to drink and rest and find peace. You taste the joy of deer who have found water after long drought, the gratitude of birds who have traveled vast distances to reach this sanctuary, the deep contentment of ancient trees whose roots have found sustenance in these sacred waters. The taste lingers on your tongue long after you've swallowed, a reminder of connections that go deeper than ordinary understanding can reach. As the water settles in your stomach, you feel something shifting inside you, some fundamental change in the way your body relates to the world around it. The last of your hurried, worried thoughts seem to dissolve like sugar in warm tea, replaced by something deeper and more restful. You feel connected not just to this moment, but to all the moments that have ever been in this forest, and all the moments yet to come. Time itself seems to become something more fluid, less urgent, more like a gentle river than a racing stream carrying you helplessly toward some unknown destination. Your heartbeat slows to match some deeper rhythm. Your breathing deepens until it seems to synchronize with the slow pulse of the forest itself. The boundary between yourself and the trees around you begins to soften, not disappearing entirely, but becoming more permeable, more flexible. You begin to understand not with your mind, but with your whole being, what it means to be part of something larger than yourself, part of the vast web of life that connects every growing thing in bonds, stronger than blood, deeper than thought. Now you begin to understand, rumbles a massive ant whose bark is so ancient and weathered that it looks like stone carved by millennia of wind and rain. Tree time is not slow time, as the quick folk imagine. It is deep time. It is time that has learned patience, time that understands that all things worth doing are worth doing with proper care and attention. It is time that knows the difference between being busy and being productive, between moving quickly and moving wisely. The ants settle around the clearing, their great forms creating a living amphitheater of wood and bark and leaves. Some lean against their treekin, some settle their roots more deeply into the earth with sighs of contentment. Some simply stand and sway gently, their leaves rustling in harmonies that seem to carry meaning just beyond the edge of your understanding. The sound is hypnotic, a lullaby sung by voices that have been singing since the world was young, since the first trees learned to speak and the first roots learned to listen. "We will tell you stories now," announces Leaf Whisper, his voice carrying the warm authority of countless evenings spent in storytelling, of wisdom accumulated through centuries of watching and listening and learning. Stories of the deep forest, of the slow seasons, of the patience that grows all things worth growing. These are not quick stories, told in the span of heartbeats and forgotten before the next tale begins. These are stories that unfold like the seasons themselves, each part given its proper time to bloom and bear fruit and leave its seeds for future tellings. And so, as the stars wheel slowly overhead in their ancient dance, and the forest settles into its deepest rhythms, you listen to stories that seem to grow rather than be told. Stories of trees that walk to new homes over the course of decades, moving so slowly that the small creatures who lived in their branches never noticed the journey until they found themselves in entirely new landscapes. Stories of winters, so long and deep that they became their own seasons, with their own customs and celebrations and ways of being, where the trees learned to dream dreams that lasted for months and wake to find the world transformed by their dreaming. They tell of the conversations between mountain and forest, conversations that take place over centuries, each word considered for decades before being spoken, each response pondered for generations before being offered. They speak of the ancient alliances between different kinds of trees, how the deep-rooted oaks provide stability and strength, while the flexible willows offer grace and adaptation, how the evergreens maintain watch through the winter months, while the deciduous trees rest and dream. The stories flow over you like warm honey, each one settling deeper into your consciousness than the last, creating layers of meaning and understanding that will continue to unfold long after the telling is finished. You find your eyelids growing heavy, not with ordinary tiredness, but with the deep, satisfied fatigue that comes from true peace, from the kind of rest that restores not just the body, but the spirit itself. Your breathing becomes even deeper and more regular, matching the slow rhythm of the forest's own breathing, while your heartbeat settles into synchrony with the patient pulse of ancient wood. One of the younger Ents, though young in Ent terms, still means several centuries of growth and contemplation, begins to hum a melody that seems to arise from the earth itself. It's not quite music as you've understood it before, but something deeper, more fundamental. It's the song that roots sing as they drink from hidden streams, the harmony that branches weave as they reach toward light, the bass note that runs through all growing things as they transform earth and air and water into the miracle of life itself. Other voices join the humming, creating layers of sound that seem to resonate not just in your ears, but in your chest, your bones, your very cells. The music seems to be teaching your body how to rest properly, how to settle into the kind of sleep that restores not just energy, but wisdom itself. You feel your breathing deepening, even further matching the slow rhythm of the song, your heartbeat, gradually synchronizing with the patient pulse of the forest around you until you can no longer tell where your own life rhythm ends and the forest S begins. The melodies weave together like roots beneath the earth, creating harmonies that speak of deep connection, of the bonds that tie all living things together in one vast, breathing, dreaming organism. Some voices carry the low, rumbling tones of ancient oaks, deep and resonant, like distant thunder rolling across summer skies. Others add the lighter notes of birch and aspen, silver bright and dancing like moonlight on water. The evergreens contribute their own steady harmonies, unchanging and eternal as the stars themselves, while the fruit trees add sweet overtones that speak of blossoms and harvest, of the cycles that bring both beauty and sustenance to the world. The music grows around you like a living thing, enveloping you in layers of sound that seem designed specifically to guide your consciousness toward the deepest kind of rest. Each note seems to find a different part of your body, relaxing muscles you didn't know were tense, releasing worries you didn't realize you were carrying. The harmonies flow through your bones, settling into your very marrow, teaching your body the ancient rhythms of growth and rest that have governed living things since the world began. "Sleep now, little quick one," whispers Leaf Whisper, his voice barely distinguishable from the rustle of leaves overhead, from the gentle sigh of wind through ancient branches. "Sleep in the heart of the forest, where all the trees keep watch. No harm can find you here. No worry can follow you into these dreams. The roots will hold you, the branches will shelter you, and the deep patience of growing things will teach your soul how to be still." As drowsiness claims you, you're dimly aware of gentle movements around the clearing. The Ents are arranging themselves into positions of watchfulness and protection, creating a living wall of ancient guardianship around your resting place. Some settle their roots deeper into the earth, anchoring themselves for the long watch of the night, their connection to the forest floor becoming so complete that they seem to merge with the very ground itself. Others spread their branches wider, creating canopies of shelter that will protect you from any night breeze or stray drop of dew. The largest among them positions himself where he can see all the paths that lead to this clearing, his eyes glowing with the soft, warm light of bioluminescent bark. The last thing you re-conscious of is the realization that you not just sleeping in the forest, you re-sleeping as part of the forest. Your breathing has become part of its rhythm. Your rest has become part of its peace. Your dreams are beginning to merge with the slow, deep dreams of trees that have been dreaming the same patient dreams for centuries. The boundary between your individual consciousness and the vast communal awareness of the forest begins to dissolve. Not disappearing entirely, but becoming as permeable as morning mist, allowing thoughts and feelings to flow back and forth, like water finding its own level. You drift deeper into sleep, and as you do, you become aware of the dreams of the forest itself. These are dreams unlike any you've experienced, dreams that move like seasons, that develop like the slow growth of rings in a tree trunk, that speak in the language of root and branch and leaf, rather than in the quick chatter of human words. You dream of rain that falls for years at a time, each drop a small blessing that soaks slowly into grateful earth, nourishing seeds that have waited decades for exactly the right conditions to begin their journey toward light. You dream of conversations between oak and ash that span decades, each word carefully chosen and slowly savored, each response pondered through multiple seasons before being offered. These conversations cover topics that human minds can barely grasp: the nature of deep time, the meaning of patient growth, the wisdom that comes only from standing still long enough to feel the world turning beneath your roots, the slow shift of seasons and centuries that teaches the greatest lessons about the nature of change and permanence. In these dreams, you understand things that your waking mind couldn't grasp, concepts that can only be comprehended when consciousness moves at tree pace rather than human pace. You understand how the forest thinks as a single entity while remaining a community of individuals, each tree maintaining its own identity while participating in something vastly larger than itself. You understand how time can be both infinite and immediate, how patience can be both passive waiting and powerfully active, engagement with the slow processes that govern all real growth and change. You understand how growth happens not in sudden bursts of activity, but in the accumulation of countless small moments of reaching toward light, toward water, toward the fulfillment of each plant's deepest nature and purpose. Each ring of growth in a tree's trunk represents not just a year of time passed, but a year of choices made, of resources carefully allocated, of adaptation to changing conditions while maintaining essential identity. The wisdom of trees lies not in thinking quickly, but in thinking deeply, not in changing rapidly, but in changing thoughtfully, with full consideration of consequences that may not manifest for decades or centuries. The dreams carry you through the night like a leaf carried by a gentle stream, sometimes floating on the surface where you re-aware of your individual identity as a dreamer in the heart of an ancient forest, sometimes sinking deeper where you lose track of where you end and the trees begin, becoming part of the vast, interconnected web of root and fungus and soil that connects every living thing in the forest into one great organism. Both states feel perfectly natural, perfectly right, as if you're remembering something you once knew, but had forgotten in the rush of ordinary life. As the deepest part of the night arrives, when the stars reach their highest point in their slow dance across the sky, the forest's dreams grow even more profound. You find yourself dreaming alongside trees that are older than human civilization, sharing their memories of a world that was young when the mountains were tall and sharp-edged, when rivers carved new paths through virgin stone, and the very air tasted different because it had never been breathed by so many lungs or carried the smoke of so many fires. These ancient ones welcome you into their dreaming with the generous patience of beings who have learned that all life is connected, that every consciousness, no matter how brief or quick, has its own valuable perspective to contribute to the great conversation of existence. They share with you memories of the world's youth, when forests covered lands that are now fields and cities, when the conversation between tree and tree stretched unbroken across continents, when the deep songs of growing things could be heard from sea to sea. You dream of ice ages that lasted millennia, of the patient endurance required to survive such changes, of the slow retreat and advance of glaciers that carved valleys and left behind the stones that now line the forest pools. You dream of the first tentative growth, when the ice finally retreated, of pioneer species that slowly prepared the soil for the great trees that would follow, of the centuries required to rebuild what had been scoured away, each generation of trees laying the foundation for those that would come after. But you also dream of smaller things, quieter miracles. You dream of the first spring after a hard winter, of the moment when frozen sap begins to flow again through winter-stiff branches, of the tentative unfurling of the first leaves as they test the warming air. You dream of the intricate dance between trees and the creatures that depend on them, the birds that nest in their branches, the small mammals that shelter in their roots, the insects that pollinate their flowers and in turn become food for countless other beings. Gradually, as the night begins its slow turn toward dawn, the dreams become gentler, more immediate, more concerned with simple presence and with grand visions of deep time. You dream of the feeling of warm soil around roots, of the taste of morning dew, of the satisfaction that comes from leaves turning sunlight into life itself. These dreams are teaching dreams, showing you how to find deep contentment in simple existence, how to rest so completely that rest becomes its own form of nourishment, its own way of participating in the great work of being alive. The dreams show you how trees sleep, not by shutting down consciousness entirely, but by shifting it into different channels, allowing the active parts of their awareness to rest while deeper processes continue their slow work. You learn to sleep like a tree, maintaining some awareness of your surroundings, while allowing your conscious mind to rest completely, letting your body's wisdom take over the work of restoration and renewal. The first hint of dawn doesn't wake you so much as invite you gently back toward waking. The change begins as a subtle shift in the quality of the darkness around your closed eyelids, a barely perceptible warming of the air on your skin. Somewhere in the forest, a bird begins to sing not the cheerful chatter of ordinary birdsong, but something deeper, more melodious, as if this particular bird has learned some of the forest's own music and is sharing it with the awakening world. The ants around the clearing begin to stir, not with the sudden alertness of creatures startled from sleep, but with the gradual awareness of beings who are always partly awake, always listening to the deep rhythms of the earth and sky. Their movements are slow and deliberate, like dancers beginning an ancient ceremony, each gesture meaningful and considered. Your own awakening follows the same gentle pattern. Consciousness returns to you slowly like water seeping into dry earth, bringing with it not the jarring shock of ordinary waking, but a sense of profound refreshment. As if you've been sleeping not for hours, but for seasons, allowing your body and spirit time to complete processes of restoration that usually go unfinished in the hurried sleep of ordinary nights. At first, you're aware only of profound peace, a sense of rest so complete that you feel as if you've been sleeping for years, rather than hours, as if your body has remembered how to truly restore itself, rather than simply pausing briefly before resuming the day's activities. Then gradually you become aware of your surroundings. The soft earth beneath you still warm from your body's heat. The canopy of branches overhead now edged with the faintest hint of approaching dawn. The gentle sounds of a forest greeting the return of light. You open your eyes to find Leaf Whisper watching over you, his ancient face wearing an expression of gentle satisfaction, like a grandfather who has successfully guided a beloved grandchild through a difficult passage. The other ants have maintained their vigil throughout the night, and now they begin to move and stretch with the slow, deliberate movements of trees, awakening to a new day, their joints creaking softly like old wood, settling their branches, reaching toward the lightening sky in gestures of greeting and gratitude. "Ah," rumbles Leaf Whisper, his voice carrying the warmth of deep satisfaction, like the sound of contentment itself given voice. "You have slept the sleep of trees, little one. See how rested you are? See how your quick thoughts have learned to move with proper patience? This is what happens when one truly rests, when one allows the deep rhythms of the earth to teach the body how to be still, how to restore itself according to its own natural wisdom, rather than according to the arbitrary schedules imposed by the hurried world. And indeed, you feel more rested than you can ever remember feeling. It's not just the absence of tiredness, it's the presence of something positive, a deep well of peace and contentment that seems to bubble up from somewhere in your core, from places that ordinary sleep never reaches. Your thoughts, when they come, arrive without urgency or anxiety, settling into your consciousness like leaves drifting down to rest on still water. Your breathing continues in the slow, deep rhythm you learned from the trees, drawing in not just air, but a sense of connection to all the growing things around you. Even your heartbeat seems calmer, more centered, as if it has learned to beat in harmony with deeper rhythms than those of ordinary human concern. You feel connected not just to your own individual life, but to the vast web of life that surrounds you, to the patient processes of growth and change that govern all living things. It's as if you've remembered something essential about what it means to be alive, something that gets lost in the daily, rush of tasks and worries, but that here, in the heart of the ancient forest, has been restored to its proper place at the center of your awareness. The sun rises, observes the aspen-voiced Ent, her words carrying the joy of someone who has witnessed thousands of sunrises and still finds each one a cause for celebration. A daily miracle that never loses its power to inspire wonder and gratitude. Soon, the quick world will begin its daily dance of hurry and worry. It's rushing toward destinations that often turn out to be less important than the journey itself. But you, little one, you now carry with you the memory of deep time, of patience, of the kind of rest that restores the spirit as well as the body. As if summoned by her words, the first rays of actual sunlight begin to filter through the canopy, creating pillars of golden light that illuminate the clearing like a cathedral. The light reveals details you hadn't noticed in the starlight. The intricate patterns in the bark of each Ent, unique as fingerprints, but speaking of shared wisdom and common purpose. The delicate carvings in the stones around the heart pool, symbols whose meaning is older than memory, but whose beauty remains timeless. The way morning dewdrops cling to spider webs stretched between branches, creating tiny galaxies of reflected light that seem to hold all the colors of the dawn. The light transforms the clearing into something magical, though you realize that the magic was always there. It is simply that you now have eyes to see it, attention, trained by your night among the trees to notice the wonders that surround every moment for those who know how to look. The ordinary world hasn't changed, but your perception of it has been cleansed and sharpened, like windows washed clean after years of accumulated dust. It is time for you to return to your world, says Leaf Whisper, though his tone carries no urgency, no sense that you being hurried along or dismissed from a place where you no longer welcome. Instead, his words carry the gentle authority of someone who understands the natural rhythms of coming and going, of the importance of returning from journeys with the gifts they have given you. But first, a gift, a reminder of this night and of the deep peace you have learned to carry within yourself. He reaches up into his own branches with movements like a gentle breeze stirring leaves, and carefully selects a single leaf from among the thousands that comprise his canopy. It is unlike any leaf you've seen before, larger than an oak leaf, but with the delicate veining of an elm, colored in shades of green that seem to shift and flow like water, changing subtly as the morning light plays across its surface. The leaf seems to glow with its own inner light, as if it has captured some essence of the forest's deep peace and learned to hold it in its living tissue. As he hands it to you, the leaf feels warm and alive, pulsing gently with its own rhythm that echoes the heartbeat of the forest itself. It's more than just a physical object. It's a concentration of the forest's essence, a tangible reminder of the peace you found here. A way to carry some of that peace with you back into the ordinary world of deadlines and schedules and all the small urgencies that usually fill your days. This will not wither or fade, he explains, his deep voice gentle with blessing, each word carrying the weight of promise and the warmth of genuine care. When the quick world grows too quick, when hurry and worry threaten to steal your peace, hold this leaf and remember. Remember the patience of trees. Remember the deep rest of the forest. Remember that all things worth doing are worth doing with proper care, and that the deepest wisdom comes not from rushing toward answers, but from learning to be still enough to hear the questions that truly matter. You tuck the leaf carefully into your pocket, and even through the fabric, you can feel its gentle warmth, its subtle pulse that seems to echo the heartbeat of the forest itself. It's a tangible reminder of this night, a bridge between the world of tree time and the world of human time. A way to maintain your connection to the deep peace you've discovered, even when you're far from these ancient groves. The path home will be clear to you now, says another Ent, one whose bark resembles cherry wood, smooth and rich with reddish highlights that catch the morning light like polished bronze. The forest knows you now, recognizes you as a friend. The paths that were twisted in the darkness will straighten in the light. leading you safely back to the borders of your familiar world. But know that you are always welcome here, always able to return when you need to remember the deeper rhythms, the slower wisdom that grows in the space between heartbeats. One by one, the Ents approach to offer their own quiet farewells. Some touch your shoulder with hands like gentle branches, their bark warm and textured like living wood should be. Others bow their great heads in acknowledgement of the night you've shared, their movements slow and ceremonial, like ancient courtesies preserved through generations of careful practice. Each farewell carries the weight of genuine affection, the warmth of beings who don't make friends quickly, but once made, hold those friendships as treasures to be carefully tended and never forgotten. As you begin to walk away from the clearing, following a path that does indeed seem clearer now, straighter and more welcoming than it had seemed in the darkness, you hear the Ents beginning their morning songs. These are different from the lullabies of the night rider, more energetic, though still moving with the measured pace that characterizes everything in the deep forest. The songs speak of gratitude for the night's rest, of readiness for the day's slow work of growth, of the simple joy of being alive and rooted and part of the vast web of forest life. The melodies follow you as you walk, growing fainter but never disappearing entirely, as if the forest is determined to send you on your way, with its blessings still ringing in your ears. The music seems to settle into your bones, becoming part of your own internal rhythm, a soundtrack for the journey back to ordinary time that will help you remember the peace you've found and the wisdom you've been given. The path leads you gradually upward and outward, winding between trees that grow progressively smaller and younger as you leave the heart of Fangorn behind. The ancient, towering presences that had seemed like living mountains give way to more modest oaks and maples, trees that, while still old and wise in their own right, carry themselves with less the profound patience of the deep forest. They seem more approachable, more connected to the human world, like ambassadors stationed at the border between the realm of tree time and the realm of clock time. The undergrowth becomes less mysterious as you walk, more welcoming to quick feet and hurried hearts, though your own feet no longer seem quite so quick, or your heart quite so hurried. The exotic ferns and strange flowering plants of the deep forest give way to more familiar vegetation, blackberry bushes, heavy with fruit wildflowers that you recognize from meadow, walks, mosses, and lichens that speak of the comfortable, well-known countryside that borders the Shire. But even as the landscape becomes more familiar, you find that you haven't entirely returned to your old way of being. Your footsteps still carry some of the deliberate care you learned from watching the Ents walk, each step placed with consideration for the ground beneath your feet. Your breathing still moves with some of the deep rhythm you discovered beside the heart pool, drawing in air as if it carried more than just oxygen, as if each breath connected you to the vast respiratory system of the living world. Most importantly, your thoughts still carry the spaciousness you found in tree time, the understanding that not everything needs to be solved immediately, that some things are best approached with patience and proper attention. The urgent concerns that had driven you from your comfortable hobbit hole now seem less urgent, not because they've been solved, but because you've gained perspective on their true importance, relative to the deeper questions of how to live well, how to be present, how to participate meaningfully in the great conversation between all living things. As the morning sun climbs higher, painting the world in shades of gold and green that seem more vivid than you remember colors being before your night in the forest, you emerge from the woodland entirely. You find yourself on a hillside that overlooks familiar countryside, rolling green hills dotted with sheep and marked by stone walls that speak of generations of patient, human cultivation working in partnership with the natural contours of the land. In the distance, you can see the smoke rising from breakfast fires and hobbit holes, the everyday bustle of a world waking up to its daily concerns. There's washing hanging on lines, children playing in gardens, the flash of bright doors opening and closing as the day's activities begin. It's a welcome sight, but not a jarring one. The peace you've found in the forest, hasn't made you want to flee the ordinary world or reject the simple pleasures of domestic life. Instead, it has given you tools for moving through that world with greater calm and deeper appreciation for both its challenges and its joys. You pause on the hillside, taking one last look back at the forest that has taught you so much in a single night. From this distance, Fangorn looks like any other ancient woodland dark, mysterious, beautiful, in the way that all wild places are beautiful, but giving no obvious hint of the wonders that lie hidden within its borders. The trees stand silent and still in the morning light, looking for all the world like ordinary trees engaged in nothing more remarkable than the business of growing toward the sun. But you know now what lies beneath that ordinary appearance. You've been welcomed into the secret heart of the forest, taught the deep rhythms that govern all growing things, shown how to rest so completely that rest becomes its own form of nourishment and wisdom. You've well learned that patience isn't passive waiting, but active engagement with the slow processes that create real and lasting change. You've well discovered that the deepest peace comes not from the absence of challenges, but from the presence of roots deep enough to weather any storm. The leaf in your pocket pulses gently, a warm reminder that you haven't left the forest's wisdom behind entirely. You've brought part of it with you, woven it into your own being in a way that will help you remember, even in the midst of the quick world's demands, that there is another way to be. A way that honors both the need for action and the need for rest, that understands both the value of efficiency and the deeper value of doing things with proper care and attention to their lasting effects. As you begin the final portion of your journey home, you find yourself humming one of the melodies you learned from the young. It's a tune that seems to arise from the earth itself and speak directly to the part of you that knows how to be still, how to be patient, how to rest in the deep way that restores not just energy, but wisdom itself. The melody stays with you as you walk, creating a bridge between the world of tree time and the world of human time, helping you carry the best of both into whatever comes next. The familiar countryside welcomes you back with its own quiet beauty. Fields of barley wave in the morning breeze like slow green seas, their movement hypnotic and peaceful. Streams chatter cheerfully over stones, their voices bright and quick compared to the deep songs of the forest, but no less meaningful in their own way. The simple pleasures of domestic life. Instead, it has given you tools for moving through that world with greater calm and deeper appreciation for both its challenges and its joys. You pause on the hillside, taking one last look back at the forest that has taught you so much in a single night. From this distance, Fangorn looks like any other ancient woodland dark, mysterious, beautiful in the way that all wild places are beautiful, but giving no obvious hint of the wonders that lie hidden within its borders. The trees stand silent and still in the morning light, looking for all the world like ordinary trees engaged in nothing more remarkable than the business of growing toward the sun. But you know now what lies beneath that ordinary appearance. You've been welcomed into the secret heart of the forest, taught the deep rhythms that govern all growing things, shown how to rest so completely that rest becomes its own form of nourishment and wisdom. You've well learned that patience isn't passive waiting, but active engagement with the slow processes that create real and lasting change. You've well discovered that the deepest peace comes not from the absence of challenges, but from the presence of roots deep enough to weather any storm. The leaf in your pocket pulses gently, a warm reminder that you haven't left the forest's wisdom behind entirely. You've brought part of it with you, woven it into your own being in a way that will help you remember, even in the midst of the quick world's demands, that there is another way to be. A way that honors both the need for action and the need for rest, that understands both the value of efficiency and the deeper value of doing things with proper care and attention to their lasting effects. As you begin the final portion of your journey home, you find yourself humming one of the melodies you learned from the young. It's a tune that seems to arise from the earth itself and speak directly to the part of you that knows how to be still, how to be patient, how to rest in the deep way that restores not just energy, but wisdom itself. The melody stays with you as you walk, creating a bridge between the world of tree time and the world of human time, helping you carry the best of both into whatever comes next. The familiar countryside welcomes you back with its own quiet beauty. Fields of barley wave in the morning breeze like slow green seas, their movement hypnotic and peaceful, of domestic life. Instead, it has given you tools for moving through that world with greater calm and deeper appreciation for both its challenges and its joys. The trees stand silent and still in the morning light, looking for all the world like ordinary trees engaged in nothing more remarkable than the business of growing toward the sun. But you know now what lies beneath that ordinary appearance. You've been welcomed into the secret heart of the forest, taught the deep rhythms that govern all growing things, shown how to rest so completely that rest becomes its own form of nourishment and wisdom. You've learned that patience isn't passive waiting, but active engagement with the slow processes that create real and lasting change. You've discovered that the deepest peace comes not from the absence of challenges, but from the presence of roots deep enough to weather any storm. The leaf in your pocket pulses gently, a warm reminder that you haven't left the forest's wisdom behind entirely. You've brought part of it with you, woven it into your own being in a way that will help you remember, even in the midst of the quick world's demands, that there is another way to be. A way that honors both the need for action and the need for rest, that understands both the value of efficiency and the deeper value of doing things with proper care and attention to their lasting effects. As you begin the final portion of your journey home, you find yourself humming one of the melodies you learned from this. It's a tune that seems to arise from the earth itself and speak directly to the part of you that knows how to be still, how to be patient, how to rest in the deep way that restores not just energy, but wisdom itself. The melody stays with you as you walk, creating a bridge between the world of tree time and the world of human time, helping you carry the best of both into whatever comes next. The familiar countryside welcomes you back with its own quiet beauty. Fields of barley wave in the morning breeze like slow green seas, their movement hypnotic and peaceful. Streams chatter cheerfully over stones, their voices bright and quick compared to the deep songs of the forest, but no less meaningful in their own way. Birds flit from hedge to hedge, their quick energy a counterpoint to the slow rhythms you've been learning. But you find yourself appreciating both kinds of aliveness, both ways of being present in the world. As you walk, you notice things you would have overlooked before your night among the trees. The way morning light catches in dewdrops on grass blades, turning each one into a tiny prism that splits white light into all the colors of the rainbow. The intricate architecture of spider webs stretched between fence posts, each one a masterpiece of engineering and artistry that speaks of patience and skill, and the kind of attention to detail that creates lasting beauty. You see how the stones in the walls have been fitted together not just for strength, but for harmony, each one chosen not just for its structural properties, but for how its color and texture complement its neighbors. The work of human hands, but work that has learned to cooperate with natural materials and natural forces rather than fighting against them. It's a different kind of wisdom than what you learned in the forest, but wisdom nonetheless, and you find yourself appreciating both the human gift for purposeful creation and the natural gift for patient growth. As you draw closer to the borders of the Shire, you begin to encounter other early risers going about their morning activities. A farmer leading his cow to pasture nods a friendly greeting, his face weathered by years of outdoor work, but kind and peaceful. A mother hanging washing pauses to wave, her children playing quietly in the garden behind her, their laughter adding to the morning's music. Each encounter feels different than it would have before your night in the forest, not because the people have changed, but because you are re-seeing them with eyes that have learned to appreciate the simple miracle of conscious beings going about the work of living. The farmer, you realize, practices his own form of patience, working with the seasons rather than against them. understanding that crops grow in their own time and can't be hurried beyond their natural pace. The mother embodies another kind of wisdom, tending her family with the same care that trees show their offspring, providing shelter and nourishment while allowing room for independent growth. The children demonstrate the quick energy that you yourself once had, and you find yourself appreciating both their vivacity and the deeper stillness you've discovered, understanding that both have their place in the great conversation of life. By the time you reach your own door, the sun is fully up and the day has truly begun. Your little hobbit hole looks exactly as you left it, but somehow different, not because anything has changed externally, but because you're seeing it with new eyes. The round door seems to glow in the morning light, welcoming you back to the simple pleasures of domestic comfort, while not demanding that you forget the deeper truths you've discovered in the wild places beyond civilization as borders. You touch the leaf in your pocket one more time before opening your door, feeling its gentle warmth and remembering the promise it carries. Inside your home, everything is as you left it: the comfortable chairs, the well-stocked pantry, the books that have been your companions through many peaceful evenings. But now these familiar comforts seem enhanced rather than diminished by your night among the trees, as if the peace you've found in the forest has made you more capable of appreciating the peace that can be found at home as well. And now, as this tale draws to its close like the gentle ending of a long, restful night, know that the forest leaf whisper showed you isn't found only in distant realms or ancient stories. It lives wherever you make space for patience, wherever you choose depth over speed, wherever you remember that the most important things in life, love, peace, wisdom, true rest, can't be rushed but must be allowed to grow at their own natural pace, like trees reaching toward light. The Ents of Fangorn offer their blessing to your own rest now, their ancient voices joining in the lullaby that carries you toward dreams as deep and peaceful as forest loam. May your sleep be as restorative as spring rain on grateful earth, as peaceful as starlight on still water, as renewing as the slow breath of trees that have learned to rest without forgetting to grow. May you wake refreshed and restored, carrying with you always the memory of deep time of patient growth, of the kind of peace that comes not from the absence of challenges, but from the presence of wisdom deep enough to meet whatever comes with steadiness and grace. Until our paths cross again beneath the party, tree dear traveler, may the trees whisper blessings on your dreams, and may you always remember that in a world that often forgets how to be still, you have learned the secret of true rest. Rest that restores not just the body, but the soul itself. The forest keeps its vigil. Still the Ents maintain their patient watch, and somewhere in the deep woods, ancient voices continue their endless song of growth and peace, and the patient wisdom that comes to all who learn to listen with the deep ears of the heart. And for now, all is still, all is well, and the great trees of Fangorn continue their slow dance of time and patience, and the deepest kind of peace that knows no ending.